Hello, I'm Jared.
And I'm Ebony, and this is his.
And hers, Warhammer 40k.
Yay! Ooh, today we're going to talk about Genefather by Guy Haley.
Yes. Genefather featuring our favorite ancient Magos tech priest, Belisarius Cawl.
Yes.
He's quite a character.
And our favorite Emperor's Children, Apothecary.
Your favorite Emperor's Children.
Everyone's favorite Emperor's Children, Apothecary. Fabius Bile.
Justice for our Lucius, the swordsman.
Not as cool as Fabius Bile. No, these are probably two of my favorite characters in Warhammer, and having them in one book's pretty awesome.
This was a pretty interesting one, you know. I think Haley has done some exceptional job in the past bringing Cawl to life. I'm not sure whether it's Cawl or Cawl, and I will be going back and forth multiple times throughout this.
Just whatever you feel like.
Just whatever I feel like. Yes.
I go with Cawl. I say Belisarius Cawl all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's fine either way. I give you permission to say it wrong. Penguins.
Yes. So Cawl really was this character who came out of nowhere on the tabletop. Like, he was introduced through Fall of Cadia. He was just this character who was kind of doing experiments on the Necron ruins that were on Cadia and the other surrounding planets.
Okay.
And got pulled into this whole fiasco with the Fall of Cadia, and suddenly he's the one creating Primaris Marines and all of this weird genetics work and the whole like logistical assemblage of all the Primaris Marines, and is really one of the backbones of the Indomitus Crusade. And yet, like, this is a recipe for the biggest Mary Sue of a character. And for a while, I think people did see him that way.
Yeah.
I think Haley has done a remarkable job of inserting Cawl into the 40k setting in a way that makes sense for him without it overshadowing a lot of other characters.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, despite it being I would call it a sci-fi setting, there's not a lot of remarkable scientists in the setting. I can think of 3. And two of them are in this book.
Because most of the science was the old one. Or not the old ones. The Dark Age of Technology humans.
Yeah. Yeah, I to be fair, the Warhammer universe is not pro-science as it is. In fact, I highlighted a favorite monologue of mine is in this book.
Yeah.
When Belisarius is talking about he's a scientist, he's an experimenter, and that's like a bad word.
It is. Yeah. Like, the concept of innovation is basically the Mechanicus's version of heresy.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's great though.
That is such. There's an interesting part of this book that is essentially a philosophical debate on whether or not Cawl is a heretic.
Yes, which is sort of central-ish to the plot of this story.
It is. I also think it was a little weak. Like, it is. It really feels like it's there to show off like Cawl's genius and exceptionalness, but his opposing character, who I think is technically an interrogator,
Frank,
or tech adept, Frank, who basically is this exiled tech priest from Forge World Akatron, who's after Cawl for
scientific heresy,
numerous heinous crimes. And he just doesn't put up that much of a fight when it comes to this debate.
I would like to read that story, like his pursuit of Cawl. I think that might be interesting.
Suppose.
Yeah.
Like, before
to be fair, he puts up a terrible fight in this book, but he was like seconded to an inquisitor, right? Like, he's there after him on behalf of an inquisitor.
Yes.
Yeah. I think maybe that inquisitor and Belisarius Cawl would make for a good story.
So that story already exists. It was a short story that was actually a prequel to this called To Speak as One.
Oh, you did say that, and we did not read it.
So I had
read it, but I didn't read it.
I put it on your. It's basically how Cawl gets another secondary character from this book, who is the Necron Cryptech Aseneth Ayu.
I don't know why there's 2 capitals in it.
It might be some sort of like Egyptian naming scheme.
I want to say Asenethayu, like together as one.
I mean,
but
maybe.
That second one is also capital A, so it's a lot. But she is interesting.
Yes. She is, I would say, a classic Necron character, unlike Trazyn, who's very much seen as an eccentric, even among Necrons.
Yeah, she's very, like, traditional evil, murder all the flesh beings.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's got her locked in, like, some sort of vault without a body, and he's like, if I let you out, will you help me? And she's like, yeah, let me out. And it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
But I think she's a cool character.
I mean, he didn't let her out.
That's true. The power went out and she escaped and things went awry.
Yeah.
But he gets her back in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you can't just have a loose Necron.
Right. That would be a problem. Well, I mean, he tried to with Trazyn, and Trazyn tried to with him. Did not work either way. Anyway, all of this is secondary to
the story
really
of
the
this
main
book.
story of this.
Yeah.
You know, we went on a little side tangent there. The main story of this is Fabius Bile against Belisarius Cawl.
Which I will say before you get into the meat of that story, that is kind of my one detraction, that for a good half of the book, it feels like you're reading two separate books. Both of those books are okay, they're good, but it just felt very like, now we're talking about Fabius Bile, and we're going to get a couple chapters of that, and now we're talking about Belisarius Cawl, and we're going to get a couple chapters of that. And I get that you're seeing how those two threads come together, but I think maybe if I had written it, I would have done a cleaner back and forth every time. It felt very separate for a long time. Okay. And it only really gels at the very end in the physical confrontation.
So I would say the mechanism that you're looking for is actually something that's very prominent in Chris Wright's storytelling. He's very good at snappy transitions and cutting chapters into this viewpoint, which parallels this viewpoint back to this one. So there's a lot more back and forth there.
Okay.
Although I feel like when that viewpoint has been done in other books, you have complained that you lose track of where you are sometimes.
I guess it depends on the story.
Okay.
Yeah, because it felt like I would have chosen a single, I get, in my mind they're both protagonists, but I guess Fabius Bile is the antagonist. I would have chosen a single viewpoint and worked from that one most of the time then, maybe. And then it would have been cohesive. There's a lot of I don't know, Fabius Bile off doing things that while cool, you didn't need to see. Yeah,
so this is where we get some comparisons of Haley's Fabius Bile and Josh Reynolds' Fabius Bile, who wrote the Fabius Bile trilogy. And
which I enjoyed.
Yes, in fact, I enjoyed it substantially more.
Well, maybe this Fabius Bile is just meh.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think in a comparison of Biles, Haley does not come out on top on that. He's fine. I
would say that the Belisarius Cawl story is quote unquote better generally than the Bile story, and it feels more like a Belisarius Cawl
It's clear that Cawl is Haley's character and Bile is not.
Yes.
Now there are certain elements where you could see he's paying homage to Reynolds' Bile. We have Butcher Bird mentioned. We have the New Men mentioned. There's a few other elements related to his gear and his backpack, but for the most part,
character personality wise, it's not the same.
Now, for those of you who have finished the Fabius Bile trilogy, you know that character difference is understandable. You know,
I know, I have a book to read.
Yeah, you have a book to read for that. Yeah. But it still does not, he's not as engaging as I would have liked to.
Yeah. Whereas Belisarius Cawl is great.
Yeah.
All the times
Cawl
that he's
is great.
On screen, it's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any scene with Cawl, regardless of what it is just fun.
Yeah, they're all great.
He's so fun as a character. Which brings us to Call's close friend, Quo89, who plays more of a role in this book than I think I was expecting.
Yeah.
You know, this is the 89th time that Cawl has brought back Friedrich Quo.
Yeah.
And it plays this lovely little Sherlock Holmes and Watson setup, I feel. But the show Sherlock, where Sherlock is totally crazy and Watson is just not having any of it.
Yeah, Gavo's not really into the whole being
Alive.
Reincarnated
Yeah.
and question mark alive. He's not sure he is alive, which I think is great. He's number 89 and number 88 is still alive.
Yeah, so there's Quo 88, who was sent off in the Dawn of Fire books to the Pariah Nexus,
Yeah.
which I have not read anything about that happening, but I'm sure we'll cover that at some point. So that was interesting. Who else do we have interesting for this story? So the book starts out, I think this is an important thing we skipped over. Fabius Bile is trying to put together a new plan, essentially. From what I gather, this takes place after the War of the Spider, which you don't know about, but it's basically Bile goes head to head with some Adeptus Custodes.
Okay.
The first ones that are leaving on the torch ships that are eventually going to provide Primaris Marines to new chapters.
Okay.
And there's an incident involving that. He's able to get some Custodes, get some Primaris Marines, and start to mess around with those a little bit.
Okay.
So he already knows the Primaris are a thing.
Right. I feel like the last time I saw Bile, he had encountered Primaris, but no one had really encountered them yet on the Chaos side, and they were like a new thing.
When did you read
I
that?
don't know, it was books ago.
I don't even recall that happening.
Yeah.
Like, because the Fabius Bile trilogies are long before anything.
Maybe it's not Fabius Bile that I'm thinking of. Maybe it's a different apothecary in a different chapter. Yeah, so this...
You're talking about Harrowmaster.
You are. I am talking about Harrowmaster. Yeah, so this starts with Belisarius Cawl trying to put together this, like, exploration force. They want to go on this mission.
He needs a team.
Yeah, he's building a team, and he's pleading his case to build this team to a bunch of Adeptus Mechanicus, like, higher-ups.
Well, Dark Mechanicum. Oh, wait. Are you talking about Bile or Cawl?
I'm talking about Cawl, sorry.
Oh, okay. So
both people are making teams. Yeah.
But in different ways.
Yeah.
I was thinking
about Bile. Yeah.
Bile.
Do Bile's team first. I'll do the Cawl team.
Bile is meeting with the Disciples of Null, who are a Dark Mechanicum sect who, if you have read The Siege of Terra or any of the later Horus Heresy books, are descendants of Sota Null, who was the representative of the Fabricator General and the start of the new / Dark Mechanicum. And he makes an interesting deal with them where he offers them, I thought this was a very neat thing, he offers them a Chaos Android, which, for those who don't know their 40k real-world history, is essentially an original first edition Necron, like before they were
the
Necrons.
Yeah.
In addition to any plunder that they want from Cult's ship.
Yes.
They take him to a Chaos Space Marine warlord, which Bile describes as just one of 1,000 little mini Chaos warlords that have popped up in Imperium Nihilus.
Yeah, he's unimpressed.
And
this warlord's like, yeah, I could help you if you make your constructs fight my constructs.
Yeah. He's like, you will fight for the honor of working with me.
Yeah, and Fabius Bile's like, this is stupid.
It's like, I've done this many times.
Yeah.
This is not impressive.
Yeah.
You know, this happens all over on numerous different worlds. This is nothing.
And obviously, his new men, led by Porter, wreck that dude's people relatively quickly. And that
pretty good fight scene.
It is a good fight scene, but it goes exactly the way you expect it to go for Fabius Bile. And so, but that dude is going to, like, support / fund this expedition.
Correct. He basically offers him a full warband of Chaos Space Marines to back him up, along with the Dark Mechanicum. And I think that's where we cut back to Cawl,
who is assembling a different team.
Yes.
So, Cawl, with Alpha Primus in tow, are meeting a panel of higher-ups in the Adeptus Mechanicus because he wants to do something that isn't quite laid out for you, but might involve time science and maybe a little bit of time travel. It's not clear. But so he shows up there, and he's delivering this presentation to them to get them to do it. They're at a cool place.
Yeah, so they're at this place
Pontis Aeres.
Pontis Aeres,
which is like an artificial meeting, like an artificial planet.
It's
right?
a flat plane.
Yeah, in the middle of space.
For those who are familiar with like Halo, if you just twisted that into a single flat plane, that is the description that we get for this place.
Yeah, so it's like an artificial meeting place that only the Mechanicus would make up. And while he's like
the Mechanicus didn't make it.
Who made it?
So that was made, like, it's a Dark Age of Technology creation.
Oh, they don't know.
They don't know. And it has this weird mix of Xenos and human tech. So the theory they have going to this place was this was some sort of neutral ground that, like, golden age of technology humans
and
would
random
meet,
Xenos would meet.
With probably, like, Eldar and other, at the time, you know, strong races. Which is a very interesting detail, because a common question that does get brought up in the community is, like,
what were all these races doing originally?
Well, so the Eldar were at the height of their empire at approximately the same time that the Dark Age of Technology, like the height of humanity. Did they interact, and what was that like? So it seems to be there was some level of interaction,
at least based on this artifact.
Yeah.
And so while he's pitching this sort of mission that he needs their help for, Frank shows up and is like, I'm here to arrest you for all your heresy. And there's this great scene, which is broken up, I think, between chapters at least, of basically Belisarius Cawl saying, like, he admits that he's an experimenter, but then he works this beautiful reverse logic where he's like, it's not really experimenting so much as it's rediscovering experiments that other people did, which is cool. And they're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But also he obviously makes lots of support and money for the Mechanicus, so they're a little bit hesitant about letting this dude arrest him. Also, this dude is of the Mechanicus, but like,
so as far as the Mechanicus is concerned,
but like he's like gutter trash Mechanicus.
So as far as the Mechanicus is concerned, he is someone who was exiled / went AWOL from his Forge World.
Okay.
And his Forge World of Akatran is there.
Okay.
They
are not about
it.
So I think he joined up with an Inquisitor, and that's why he's on this arrest Belisarius Cawl mission. But there's a great scene of him getting down to Pontis Aeres, and like he has to like go through security or whatever, and he expects all of this like to do about his like station.
That was on Akatran, I thought.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was also getting here. He expected all of this to do, and they're like, whatever, you're just some dude.
No. So he was on Akatran in order to get passage to Pontis Aeres.
Okay. And then he gets there and speaks to them with his flesh voice, and everyone is offended.
Yeah.
And it's not great. So it doesn't go well for that guy. In the meantime, the part of Belisarius's landing at this place to talk to all of these dudes is also like setting up security for himself, and so he brings a bunch of knights with him, but they're supposed to stay off in the distance. And then we get a digression to a knight story that no one cared about.
There are some Imperial Knight characters in this book who are sort of representatives of the various hanger-ons that Cawl has, which as a concept is very cool. You know, you get a map maker, and you get these knights, and all of these groups that this is supposed to be sort of further into the Indomitus Crusade, and Cawl has sent off his followers for various tasks, and we're down to sort of the last few.
Yeah, so like the Zarquisitor is not like full of people. It's still pretty full, but it's not full of people. And I will say that the other characters, unrelated to the two dudes and the knights, really are interesting.
Yes.
Like Alpha Primus, the ship's captain, the dude who makes the map,
even the head of security.
The woman who's the head of the security, right? Like they're all pretty interesting, because also we're getting to watch Alpha Primus run sort of the security for this meeting for Belisarius Cawl. And that part is cool.
The knights, the story itself, I could have done without.
Yeah.
It's the best thing I can say about the knights is in the main knight character suit, there's an old geezer of a knight pilot who's so great.
He's just like someone's grumpy grandpa, and it's great. He's always just like shitting on the dude driving the knight.
But other than that,
nothing to remember them by.
It was a little wasted. Could have done without that.
And then I guess we're skipping along to the conflict.
Yeah,
right?
so what eventually happens, we get sort of two parallel moments. One is Quo finding sort of a secret passage into Pontis Avernus,
Yeah.
where there's a webway gate that gets activated by an agent of the Disciples of Null. And at the same time, up in space, there's, I guess it's a tech virus that's sent into the Zarquisitor that basically shuts all the power down.
Yeah. So they're freaking out up there.
Mm-hmm.
Vo is trapped by this agent of
Yep.
the Null people underneath the thing. And Belisarius is back on the Zarquisitor, but like he is locked. He's like,
Yeah, so he basically gets locked in his own little museum room.
yeah,
once
he gets
the power
trapped
goes
in his
off.
museum, and the Necron lady gets loose, and so
Right.
they have to have a fight,
Yep.
which is very interesting. And he finally figures out that the whole purpose of this Fabius Bile, and it's very Fabius Bile. Like Fabius Bile says, I'm going to deliver all these goods to these people and give them Space Marines, etc. But really, his mission is to get his hands on Alpha Primus.
Right.
Right. So that is Fabius Bile's goal, to get Alpha Primus's gene seed, or all of him, I guess. And eventually, Fabius Bile figures that out, like that's what's happening, because Call figures that out because they have like a phone call, like a space phone call from each other's spaceships.
Yeah, Bile comes in on a hologram
Yeah.
and talks with Carl and gives him the classic, come and join me. And Carl says, Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Which, in defense of Fabius Bile, they are very similar. I think that they have similar personality traits.
Carl still has the interests of the Imperium at heart.
I
this
think
is
that's debatable.
This isn't Basilio Foe we're talking about.
I think that's a little bit debatable. I think he has the interest of scientific fun at heart, and as long as it doesn't hinder the Imperium supports it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that back and forth before Call realizes that, like, this hologram thing is a trick. Like, Fabius Bile's new people are loose all over the ship, and Alpha Primus, who is obviously rushing to the heart of this fray to fight literal Fabius Bile in person, is likely it's a trap. And so we do get a
tarp.
It's a tarp. We do get a cool fight scene between Alpha Primus and not Porter.
No, that is Porter.
Porter the lady or the dude. There's both. He fights both of them, but he kills the dude. There's like a Beast Man who's also higher up in
Brutus?
Brutus, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But he kills him.
Brutus is not a new man. Brutus is just an abhuman.
Yeah.
It's a beast man.
He gets killed. And Porter takes Alpha Primus down, and by the time Belisarius gets there, like, Fabius is Narthesiuming Alpha Primus.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I was a little confused about, because Space Marines can't live without at least one progenoid. And I know for those who have done their research, they'll say, well, what about Legion of the Damned, where there's an example of both progenoids being removed. It's like, I have asked Laurie Goulding directly, who specified that it was wrong / was no longer canon.
Okay.
There is no other example in all of 40K that I was able to find in which both progenoids are removed while the Marine is still alive.
Do we explicitly say both of them are removed?
Yes, there are two separate scenes of Bile removing them.
I'd have to go back and read that.
If it was one, fine.
And you do get the impression that Bile knows that Belisarius will be able to save him. I guess
Correct.
Some knowledge that both of them have about making Space Marines. Bile says this will be okay, because there is a tense moment where, like, he isn't actually fighting Bile, and he's like, you could chase me, or you could save what is essentially your son.
Now, this might be Cal can just put more progenoid into him.
Yeah.
But
traditionally, that's not true, right? Yeah. And so he doesn't chase Fabius Bile. He saves Alpha Primus. In the meantime, Fabius Bile's sort of virus that has taken over the Zarquisitor actually gets removed by Kvo.
Yeah, so this was an interesting scene.
The Null person has Kvo in the underneath Pontis Aeres, and she is using, apparently Kvo has a permanent uplink to the Zarquisitor, like to the Call noosphere, so to speak. And so she uses that as a backdoor to get into the ship.
Right.
And that is part of what shuts all the systems down.
But Quo reverse hijacks
Yeah.
that and is able to use that to remove the virus
Yeah.
that's on the ship.
Which is very cool.
It was neat.
Yeah, and then they have like a sweet scene towards the end of the book where Quo is like, well, you have to deactivate me because I'm a weakness. And Belisarius is like, friends aren't a weakness.
Yeah.
Which is very sweet.
It was nice to see actual weakness from Call in the form of Alpha Primus, who he does view as an actual son.
Yeah.
And Quo, who he does view as an actual,
Friend.
like, something,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, I thought that was very sweet. And I like to get that opposing point of view from a main character. At least one that, you know, you've come to expect a certain thing from. I definitely thought he would destroy that bow. Also, there are 88 of them. Or like, right, you could just make another one.
True.
Although
yeah.
he thinks this one is the best one yet.
Well, I'm sure he thought the last one was the best one yet, too.
Everyone gets better. Each one gets slightly better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the end, this is a full win for Fabius Bond.
Yep, definitely.
Like, no doubt about it, Cal fully lost.
Yeah.
You know, unless you count the fact that he was able to convince, I think, 2 of the 3 Forged Worlds to back him on his expedition.
Yeah, which I guess we'll learn more about in the future, I hope.
Yeah, so what's interesting is this book is marketed as standalone. Like, we don't think it's part of a series.
Okay. I hope it is.
It better be. Like,
yeah, I would like more.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going with this.
Yeah.
So, final scores?
Ooh, I have to go first.
Yeah.
I would love to give it a 10 because I love both of these characters. I'm not giving it a 10.
Okay.
I would give it a 7.5.
Really?
Maybe an 8.
Okay. So an 8 is what I would give it.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was fine. I feel the call books, or the call portions of it, were very solid.
Yeah.
And Haley still has a wonderful grasp on the character. I think the overall plot was decent. I think it served its purpose.
Yeah.
I think the Fabius Bile portions were a little bit of a letdown, and the night portion was unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't even know why that was there. I just forgot about it, honestly, until we started talking about it.
I also wish and hope Frank is more of a character.
Yeah, I liked him. I think I
yeah.
would like to see more of his adventures.
Yeah, I could see, like, actually a climax of the next book. Frank finally getting one over on Call.
Yeah, I'd like that.
But, like, not in a way where Call is actually worried, but in a, you actually beat me on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Yeah, this was a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's a strong showing for Haley. I did not like it as much as the Great Works, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I don't know. Maybe they're even for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I want more out of Belisarius Call stories that I'm not getting, but like I'm not getting something.
It is an issue when the character feels just right.
Yeah.
You're not sure how to improve on
it. I think for me as a sci-fi reader, I'm not getting enough science in the science fiction part. I honestly think that's what it is.
Let me tell you, if any Black Library author is going to add science to something, it is Haley.
Okay.
He has introduced more what I'd call hard sci-fi into 40K than any other author, and it's not even close.
Yeah. I think maybe it's just that I want a little bit more of that.
Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise, a solid showing.
I should have you read Death of Integrity. That was his first major book.
Yeah.
And that was where he really brought in hard sci-fi.
Okay, I'd read it.
But I think for a next book, we're going to complete the current Belisarius Call lore and have you read Wolfsbane, which is one of the Horus Heresy books that we initially skipped over.
Okay. Taking it back to the heresy.
Yeah, it is primarily about Leman Russ.
Okay. I like Leman Russ.
And I honestly, it's such a good showing for Leman Russ for most of the book.
Okay. We're reading The Martyr's Tomb.
Yes, we are currently listening to The Martyr's Tomb, so one of those will finish first, and that will be the next one.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yay.
I think that's all for now.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.